What was your first real short film?
Funny enough, it was right after The Closet. I was like, okay, Evan, let's do something where we really sit down and map it out.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite director of all time is Robert Rodriguez. And so I wanted to do something that was sort of in that wheelhouse. And I said, Evan, we'll write it together, but I want to tell you how we're going to film it. And she's like, okay. So we wrote it together. It was called El Chevere, and it was about this cowboy gunman that comes to town to this saloon, and speaking of this monster, this fabled monster, and is wondering if they'd seen him in the town. And so it's just a really short film. But anyway, it's about her brother. So the whole thing is about her brother.
Okay.
So we shot it. The style is very much if Sin City was a Western.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it. It's on the website, but it's like I think it's like 2.5 minutes. I mean, that one we played everywhere. Literally, that one we played at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood.
Wow.
Yeah, so I took her out there. They did a Q&A panel for it afterwards, and she got up there and spoke. I was like, why don't you go up there and speak?
That's awesome.
And so she gets up there, and it's like this whole, it's packed. It's Chinese theater.
Yeah.
The moderator was like, can you tell us a little bit how you filmed this? And she was like, well, we shot it on green screen. And the moderator was like, well, can you kind of explain green screen? And she was like, sure, let me break it down for you. And so she broke down and I was like, this is wild.
Proud papa moment right there. Absolutely.
And then we started there. We started at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood, went for like 18 months on the circuit with it, and ended up back at Comic-Con in San Diego, right? She screened it there, and we did a panel, and Ted Raimi was hosting the Comic-Con Film Festival.
You're kidding.
Calls her up on stage, and and just completely like a 5-minute interview of her. And I'm thinking she has no idea what is happening.
Not at all.
San Diego Comic-Con, she's getting interviewed by Ted Raimi about the film.
Yeah, baby brother of Sam. Good grief.
Yeah,
Good
right? It was wild.
But she had no idea.
That was the first when I was like, oh, okay, I see. And so every step along the way has sort of been like, at least for short films, has been trying to crack that code of like, what makes a good short film? What makes it interesting? What makes it resonate? And it's not like it's not science and it's not magic. It's just somewhere in between, and sort of cracking that code.
My first little short film, we busted out at the Chinese Theater in Comic-Con. Come on now.
I know, right? It was wild.
Yeah, that's awesome. VHS viral. Tell me about that process. Tell me about how that came about. Just break that one down for me.
Okay, so that is a really funny story. So
I figured it might be.
Yeah. So my best friend Tim and I went to preschool together, right? Okay. And in 9th grade, he moved down to Atlanta. I was still in Pennsylvania. So he went to this school called McEachern. Mm-hmm. And McEachern, a lot of people in his class is the woman who created Elf on the Shelf. About, I think, 5 kids on his track team all went pro NFL football, including I think Andre Coleman. I think that's his name for the Rams.
Wow.
So it's like a big school. But anyway, there was this one guy, Greg Bishop, who's a filmmaker, went to USC. And so Tim would keep me in the loop about Greg. And then when I moved down here, he was like, yo, you need to hook up with Greg. You need to talk to Greg. You need to talk to Greg. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to talk to Greg, right? So Greg goes off and does this film called Dance of the Dead, which is like one of my all-time favorite films. Sam Raimi's company, Ghost House Pictures, picked it up and distributed it.
Awesome.
And it's just like a cult classic. It's an absolutely incredible film. I told Greg, if I would have done Dance of the Dead, I would have retired, never done another film. It's that good.
It's a good thing you didn't then.
So anyway, fast forward, and Tim tells me that Greg is going to be working on doing segment in VHS viral. And I was like, oh, cool. And I'd never met Greg at this point. Okay. This was 2012, I think. And so I'm actually at the beach with my family down in Florida on vacation. And Tim tells me this, I think it was Facebook or something. And so I texted Greg and I was like, hey man, I think I heard you're shooting in Atlanta for this VHS thing. I said, I'd love to help if there's anything I can do. I said, I just got a new camera. I don't know what you need, but if there's anything you need, let me know. He hits me right back and he's like, yeah, man, I'd love to have you. I'd love, bring your camera. Right. And I was like, cool. When is it? And this was a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, we start on Sunday.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. He's like, yeah, we fly in on Sunday. And I was like, okay, well, my camera is still being worked on out at Red in California. So I'm like, and he's like, okay, we'll see what you can do. Cause we're shooting, starting on Monday. And so I went to, and this is how good Red is. I went to Red and I went up the chain and I was like, hey man, I have this, I'm working on this film, VHS viral. I need my camera. And they were kind of like, it wasn't ready yet. It was going to be like another 2 weeks. It went all the way up the top, apparently, to Jared at the top. And he was like, send him a camera. So they sent me my camera and they got it to me on Sunday, which I was like, oh, thank God.
That's tough.
So, yeah. So we filmed the whole thing on my camera. I got to work with, man, it was that I always say to Greg, like anytime, and I just filmed with Greg last week too. And I was like, anytime I get to work with Greg and George and that crew, it's like film school. It's film school in a box because they're the most creative, intelligent people you will ever work with on a set. And it's like every time I'm with them, it's exhausting, but it's also super inspiring. And so we shot, Dante, which was the part of VHS Fire. We shot the whole thing in 5 days. Most of it in Atlanta. I think we did 1 day at the Birmingham Theater over in Alabama, and then it's like a whirlwind. Like there's all the stunts in it are real. Like they threw a woman up 30 feet in the air on fire. I mean, all that you see is all real.
That's not CGI at all.
No, not at all. There's a part if you watch it where Dante's throwing fireballs at the camera. That's my camera, and George is right behind the camera, and I'm right behind George because I said the camera catches fire, I might as well catch fire too. And it's literally fishing line that comes right at the camera, and they'd put these tennis balls, and they'd coated them in I think gas or kerosene or something, and lit them, and he's just zinging them down this wire and right at the camera, and there are a couple of them like singeing. You can see the singeing off the camera. I was like, this is crazy.
I thought that was CGI. I just watched that.
All practical. I'll tell you the only thing that's CGI, and I still am like, Greg, I don't know how you did it, is there's a scene where Dante and the woman are like on the walls climbing, right? That's real. They're on the walls. Yeah. But the birds are fake. It was one bird. That's the only thing that was fake was the birds.
That makes sense. I was like, they get that.
Yeah, those are all fake birds. I guess it was one bird he filmed and just put them across the screen. But it was wild. Like every day was like something new, and I was just like, and I'm here for it. I'm like, it was crazy. Yeah,
that'd be a lot of fun to shoot, especially like guys. If you haven't watched this, go watch VHS Viral. Like, oh my gosh, I thought the whole that's crazy to think about. Especially
and it's all real, dude. Like being there, and the thing is like I'll say this about Greg because he's doing one right now. I helped on it, and when we're doing it, I'm thinking in my head, and I'll even say it to Greg, there's no way this is going to work. There's no way this can work. And every time it works with Greg, it's crazy to see it. The guy is next level creative.
Remember, you're right there next to him. Put a little feather in your cap there. Remember, you're right there.
Man, it's funny because our costume designer, Kristen, and she said she loves Greg's work too. And she's like, who does Greg want to be when he grows up, basically? And I said, Steven Spielberg. I think that's his idol, right? And she was like, well, who do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, Greg.
Let's talk about #PrettyFunny.
Okay.
What did you do on that again?
I produced it with Tori and Melissa, and then I directed episode 3.
That's what I thought. I knew it was a little bit of a mix-up. You didn't do any writing on that either, did you?
No, Melissa wrote the whole thing, which was cool because it was all contained. So it's like a singular vision. She was like the showrunner on it.
Yeah, sometimes they kind of break it up.
And I think I was the only dude that directed, and I mean that in like a negative way because the women did a great job.
Yeah.
And I think they wanted to get all women. I think I don't know why they got me to do one, but the other women were fantastic.
Awesome. So what was it like kind of directing like you said, it was like, you said like episode 3, right? It's kind of right in the middle of the series. How was it directing something kind of in the middle? Like, did you kind of feel like the continuity, like did you study the previous 2 episodes to kind of keep the continuity and the shots and everything?
No, what I did, and I think what was and I mean, I knew I was there every day, so I saw everyone's style, right?
Gotcha.
But my style is just I think a little different,
Mm-hmm.
like and sometimes a little sillier. Like I'll lean into the comedy sometimes, and then in the edit we'll pull some things back. But Melissa's writing was, I mean, it was all on the page.
Mm-hmm.
So visually, like I had some ideas of like little beats and things, but credit to Melissa because it was all there. Like it wasn't like I had to go creating shots or creating these, you know, visually complex things. It was all there. And
Awesome.
and she co-directed it with me too. So it was like in a way that like I'm more visual, like I see things, you know, and I'll be like, oh, put the camera here, put the camera here. But she wrote it. So it's her vision, it's her story.
Mm-hmm.
So it was this sort of like working together, trying to figure out how to marry that all together.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It was fun. It was really interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you watch a bunch of episodes of any series, you'll see different directors, sometimes even a lot of different writers and stuff. And watching those through, like a lot of them, you cannot tell that someone else directed it. And other times, like I feel like with Game of Thrones, they broke up the directors, and I feel like there was specific people doing specific things in that series. So it's kind of cool that it kind of just flowed for you guys.
Yep.
So let's see, Dead by Midnight.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to see it yet? Yeah.
I told you I did my research.
That's funny. So yeah, this was 2015, and Tori Hawes and his group, Monster Buster, they would do these horror movies that were very much in line with Dead by Midnight. That's their style, yep. Right? I didn't have a style. I was sort of like the newbie on the block, but we was like, okay, well, let's try something together. And so the thought was, what if we did a Tales from the Dark Side, like the show, or the, you know, mostly like the show, but even like the movie a little bit, okay. And a creep show even. So what we did was we paid out of our own pocket, Tori and I, and we put together this sizzle reel of like, here, the teaser of like, here it is. And I think it's coming out here on Blu-ray here very soon. I can say, I'm letting you guys know, but, I think it's on there, and we put that together, and then we pitched it to U42. Like, we'd like to do this anthology, because at the time there weren't many anthologies. This wasn't like, we did this, you know, 7 years ago. So it wasn't like this was now they're, you know, ubiquitous. Everyone sort of knows like anthologies, but at the time it was like, we had to kind of explain like what an anthology was and how it worked. And so U42 saw it and they loved it. So they, you know, they're like, do it. Here's a check, basically, go do it. No constraints to do whatever, which, wow. Okay. Yeah. So what we did was we decided we're going to tie this thing together with this, you know, wraparound. But each story, each filmmaker has their own vision, whatever it is. So it was me, Tori, Jay, and Eric, those three were all with Tori and Monster Buster. And I brought in Anissa Matlock, who is a longtime friend, and she's a phenomenal actress. If you haven't seen her work, she's phenomenal. But she's been wanting to write and direct, and she's super talented. So the five of us got together, and then I think Melissa wrote one of them. So there's a lot of overlap, and I wanted Jersey Devil, the first piece. Like, my goal was to make just a roller coaster. Like, I wanted to hot jump everyone into the story. Like, I just start in the middle and hit the ground running, so that they don't have time to think about it and don't get bored. So that was my whole goal with Jersey Devil. And I wrote the first pass of the script, and the lead character was based on my sister, who's really funny and really smart. And I thought, you know, she's not an actor though. So on the radio down here, the #1 morning show in Atlanta is this show called The Burt Show. Okay. And at the time, she was a producer, and I think she was like a phone screener, but they'd have her on every now and again, Davi Crimmins. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's the voice. Like, her voice is the voice that this character is. And so I was at the U42 offices one day, and I was like, hey, does anyone have any connections to The Burt Show? And Ian Burke was like, yeah, we do the music for them. And I was wow. I was like, can you put me in touch with Davi? And he's like, I can try. So he basically puts them in touch. And I was like, and I finally get through to her. It took like a month. And I was like, can you meet? I would like to talk to you about this role, right, for this film. So I meet her, and she's like super serious. And I'm like, uh-oh. I thought maybe that's like a character she's portraying. Well, she thought this was some sort of radio bit, and she was being punked like at first. She didn't think it was real. Yeah. And so then I was like, no, it's real. And she's like, well, she's like, I don't understand why you came to me. And I was like, okay, here's the deal. I needed to meet you to see if you were the same person as you are on the radio. And she's 100% that same person.
That's awesome.
And she's like, okay, well, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to audition? What do you want me to do? And I was like, no, I've seen you. I said, here's what I want you to do. Take this script and read it. And if you like it, make it better. And so she hit me back and she's like, love it. And I got her with one line. There was one line in there where there was like, where she said, the character says donkey punch to the demon. And that was the line that got her. And she's like, I love it. And after that, she rewrote a bunch of stuff. And so we really collabed on that. And that's how the whole thing was, is like, I would, work grip on Jay's project, and on Tori's project, I would help with lights. And I mean, whatever it took, like, so everyone sort of, Tori ran camera on mine, there's just like, we did all of these different jobs and had the same DP through all of them. And I think same sound through all of them, I think. But that was about it. Like everything else, we just sort of mixed and matched. And it was just to make an anthology, and low budget, and it did really well. Like it was really popular. Like, we got a lot of write-ups, a lot of really good praise. And so then they were like, we'll do another. So we did another. And this time we brought in Kane Hodder, and we brought in Linnea Quigley, and we brought in Bill Moseley, and we did this thing. It was like, well, I get bored of, like, I don't want to see another anthology. Like I was like, well, let's do something totally different. So we started down that same tropey route of like just the anthology. Then it was like, well, let's just do something different. And I watched this commentary on Airplane, the movie Airplane. And they said that they wanted Airplane to be like Kentucky Fried Movie, where they would have basically the movie Airplane was going to be like 20 minutes long, filled with all these nonsense commercials.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, like RoboCop, those kind of commercials is what I imagined. And so we were talking about, I was like, hey, and the first pitch I had was the Murder All commercial with Kane Hodder. Like, we should do that. And I don't know if it worked, but it was like, at least it was something different. And it was like, let's just try something way out there, see if it lands, see if it works. And that just, Indican Pictures picked it up, and they just released it like, I don't know, a month ago. But yeah, so that's the Dead by Midnight. But along the way, we met so many cool people. Aaron Brown, like we were doing this thing where we were like, Tori and I do this thing like, well, who would you cast? Mine's always Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell, right? And he was like, I'd cast Kevin Sorbo, and we're like, it's just these random people, Yeah. And so then we started talking about like, well, who could we cast that might actually want to do it? And he was like, well, what about Aaron Brown? And I was like, well, do you know Aaron Brown? He's like, well, I know a guy that knows her. And so we hit up Aaron, and she's the best. She came in, she's been every step of the way. She's just been the best. And so is everybody. I mean, Dobby came in and killed it. Everybody that came in. And it's funny because you see all these people that worked on Dead by Midnight. Now they go out and they do all these other things. And you're like, this whole family is starting to grow up basically. And so it's really cool that we all got to work on something as silly and fun as Dead by Midnight.
Absolutely insane. I loved it. I was like, like you said, it was like here and there and back and forth. It was just absolute mayhem. I'm not going to spoil it all for you guys. Go watch it. For the record, just for our fans, explain an anthology.
So an anthology basically is a series of, they do it on TV shows all the time. They do it, but in a movie, it's a contained movie where you've got different stories. So you might have 3 different stories or 5 different stories, and they may be loosely connected, like Trick or Treat, that horror movie. That one's an anthology and it's loosely connected. Yep. Or it might be like Creep Show, where each one is basically like a different episode of a TV show. So you might get a 20-minute, a 20-minute, a 20-minute, a 20-minute. Then you have this wraparound in whatever form or fashion that is, that sort of is the glue that binds these stories together. And sometimes that thing is very loose, like in our second Dead by Midnight. And sometimes it's woven into the stories like Trick or Treat or the first Dead by Midnight.
And if you need a comedy anthology, think of Movie 43.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. That's a perfect example of an anthology that's not horror. It's hard to find anthologies that aren't horror. Kentucky Fried Movie is another one.
It's hard to make, right? Because you got to have that loose story, and that loose story is going to tie in somehow. And with Movie 43, it's like a complete disconnect until you jump back into what's actually happening.
Right. I think Tarantino and Rodriguez did 4 Rooms. I think that's another one. Yeah.
Yep. Gosh. Don't even get me started on Tarantino and Rodriguez. Like that. Oh. Anyway. Moving on.
Robert Rodriguez is my favorite. I could talk for a month and a half about Robert Rodriguez.
I could talk forever about like one film. Like, anyway, let's go ahead and jump in. Actually, first, let's go to music videos. How the heck? Like, first off, let's start with the list because I know who you've worked with. Let's start with the list of all you've worked with, and then we'll go kind of pick it apart.
Okay. Well, it's quite a bit. Like if it's just music videos, like straight music videos, you've got Arrested Development, Big Daddy Kane, Master Ace, Batman Scoop, Redman, Busta Rhymes, Fife, Q-Tip, Jerobi, who else? Chub Rock, Steezo.
Chub Rock?
Oh man.
Oh, let's start there. So my first experience with Chub Rock is he did a song with Kanan. Okay. And he kind of flipped it around. It was like, because he's a Somalian rapper, and then like Chub Rock jumps in and just like smooths the whole thing out. It's beautiful. Talk about Chub Rock because he's amazing. What did you do for that? What did you do for him?
Okay, so I could talk for 6 weeks about Chub Rock. So first time I met Chub Rock was through my friend Chia, who is like childhood friends with Redman. But anyway, it was like I'm trying to think. So she took me down to Chub Rock. He does a radio. He's at Star 94, something here in Atlanta, one of the big radio stations.
Yep.
But he has a couple shows. And so I went down there and I talked to him for a minute and it was really cool. And then a couple weeks later, he called me up. And the coolest thing about Chub Rock is like, there is no, hey, how you doing conversation with Chub Rock. They're like 3 hours long. Like he'll tell you, because I'm like, I love hip hop. So like hip hop history is like, it's like everything to me. And he'll sit there and he'll tell you, oh, here's how this happened. Here's why this is a thing.
He was there.
Here's why. and it got to the point where like in this one conversation where he was like, hip hop didn't start in New York and it certainly didn't start in 1973. And he breaks down where it started. Mm-hmm. Like he believes it started in the Carolinas and he makes a strong case for that.
I love it.
But anyway,
my opinion. Absolutely.
So I get these. So Chub Rock hits me up and it's like, and so he was like, yeah, I want to do this documentary. And I was like, yeah, man, count me in. So we've been talking about it, working on it. And then I'm working on this thing. And so, and we got Moni Love. Moni Love is going to be the host of it. And we filmed this pilot and I took it down to Chub. Now he's south of the city. So I took it down to him one day and I hung out with him and his brother. And it was crazy because they were just telling me stories for days. But so I show him this thing and he's like, it's good. Here's what you need. And he starts giving me clips of like, you need to add this, it needs this and this. And so I was like, okay. And so I'm taking notes and getting all this information. And I was home then like a couple weeks later and he calls me and he's like, hey man, I need a huge favor. I was like, whatever. Yeah, and he's like, I need to shoot this verse for a music video. And I was like, say less, you know? And that's my new hashtag because I worked on this project with these kids and they said it was real funny. But so he's like, okay, it's at this barbershop. Just come down to this barbershop and I'll fill you in. I was like, cool, I'm on my way. Yeah. So I packed up my gear and I went down there. Turns out, and I don't know if you remember Steezo, who was a rapper. Yeah. Well, he passed away. Yep. And his DJ was trying to put together like a posthumous album for Steezo. And so there was this song that it was Steezo, it was Chub Rock, and it was Grand Poobah on the song. And he wanted to, yeah, I know, right? Wow. And he's like, I want to shoot the video for it. And I was like, yeah, man, I got you. So I shot Chub's verse. No,
you didn't. You shot that video?
Yeah. Yeah. So
never would have guessed it was you, but like, wow.
Yeah. So so anytime Chub calls or texts me, I'm there. Like the dude is like legit brilliant, legit a nice guy. And he's like me. Like it's like I feel like if we don't capture this hip hop history now, we're losing too many people where you're going to lose all of this information. There's no context for it. There's no history of it. There's no record of it. Right. These people, like when Fife passed, it was a tragedy. And it's like, he left us this album, but there's so much more that like, as I hear these stories and I'm like, why weren't cameras there? Why didn't anyone interview him about this? We had Moni Love, we had a Zoom call with her and we were just talking about stuff and we were talking about Tupac, right? And she was telling us these stories about how Breakfast worked on tour and all these, they're just these fun stories. And I'm like, these have to be captured because
Yep.
This was Tupac back when he was, I don't really know what he was, but I saw him when he was with Digital Underground, and he was a dancer at the time. He wasn't, this was before he was rapping. I don't know what he did on tour, and I'm not even sure if Moni knew what he did on tour, but he was there with Shock G and everything. And Moni and Queen Latifah were on that tour. And so just these stories that are like, they're going to be lost to history if no one's there to record them. And Chubb is very much like me, where he's very technical, very knows technology as well as anybody. And so he's the one that's always like, my brother, you need to capture this stuff. So he has a show coming up July 2nd here. Get this. So it's Slick Rick, Chubb Rock, Big Daddy Kane, KRS-One, EPMD, and I think DOS Effects, right? And
what's the date on that again?
It's July 2nd. It's in Mapleton.
Let's see. Flights.
Look it up. Look it up. It's legit. Like, they had it last year, and I went to it last year and I filmed. Oh man, that's a whole nother story. When we talk about Big Daddy Kane, that's a whole nother story. But I went to it last year and filmed Big Daddy Kane.
Wow.
But this year I'm going to it for the sole purpose of I want to go backstage and just capture some of just the backstage of like what they're talking about and just the history. And like, I'm not trying to creep and I'm not trying to do anything. It's not about like getting some TMZ worthy story or anything. It's really just about capturing like these guys, their story. So
I 100% agree. Like, this is literally like, you're like, whoever's watching this, I'm going to record this, put it on YouTube, all the other stuff. We need they're going to be gone and we're not going to have any other stories, period.
Yeah. And there's so many a year that it's like, I'll hear stories all the time that I'm like, why has no one talked about this? That are just like, and they're not like these, dirty stories or like someone's dirty laundry. They're just like, there's just these fun things that I'm like, who would have ever thought that was a thing,
Yep. And like, even with the recent guys like Tentacion and then like Juice WRLD and stuff like that, like those guys, like,
yeah,
Tyler the Creator's got the 100% right idea when he started his show and everything like that, capturing everything they do, the goofy stuff. Like, sure, they scripted a lot of that and did a lot of skits, but it was also them having fun and stuff like there's a reason Jackass took off forever, because they were just having fun at first. Like,
yeah, and there's so much to that. Like, for example, this show we're working on, it's called Golden Era with Moni Love.
Okay.
And it's that kind of thing. We sit down with artists and we talk, and for example, we interviewed Speech, and I'm not going to get into it because it's really good, but he talks about working with Prince, and it's awesome. Like, it's stuff you like you kind of think, yeah, I can see that, being a thing, like the pancakes, the Charlie Murphy pancakes.
I was
that,
literally just thinking that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And everyone I talk to that has a Prince story, like, I'll give you one that I think is just amazing. Is Ian Burke told me this story. So Ian is a friend of mine, and he's the one that discovered TLC. He managed Outkast, Goody Mob, Arrested Development, worked with Criss Cross. Like, when you talk about Atlanta music, the center of it is Ian Burke, right?
I didn't realize that was the same.
It is, and they're all the same. Like, they all come from that center. That nucleus is Ian Burke.
Wow.
And so I'm talking to Ian, and he was like, his main artist, like from the jump, was Left Eye. Yeah. And so I was like, tell me, and I'm always like, tell me a story, tell me something. Like, and he's worked with everybody. And so he told me this story about Left Eye had a pajama party, right, at her house, and it was in a cul-de-sac.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so so we're all there, right, and everyone's hanging out, and everyone's in their pajamas, and this massive bus pulls into the cul-de-sac and can barely like turn, like, it's so big.
Wow.
It stops and everyone goes outside like, what is this bus? And out comes Prince in his pajamas, ready for the party. It's like, he's like, it was the most, and he said these are like A-list people at this party, and everything stops when Prince comes. That's how big Prince was.
Oh man. Talk about another one gone too soon, Left Eye. Like, that, she was a star. Like, that was Yeah. And they were the first people I met when I came to Atlanta. You met, like, the first people you met in Atlanta was TLC and Ian.
Not Ian. Oh. Here's what's funny. I've been around Ian since I've been in Atlanta. I did not meet Ian. I'll never forget it. One day we were shooting a promo here at my house, and Speech was setting it up. Mm-hmm. and he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna bring Ian Burke through if that's okay." And I'm like, I went up to my wife and I was like, "We got to clean the house. Ian Burke's coming." And she's like, "Who's Ian Burke?" And I said, "Look him up." And he looks him up, and she's like, "We got to clean the house." And then Ian comes over, and man, I love Ian. Ian, man, I just love that guy. I've known him now 6-7 years now, so it's not been a long time, but man, anytime I get to, I literally just was down. He has a studio here called Icon Studios, and I was just down there yesterday, and it's like any chance I get to hang out with Ian, even for like 10 minutes, it's the best.
Just casually mentioning Icon Studios, come on.
I was down there, so, and he, like, everyone records there. I mean, Justin Bieber,
anyone could have walked in, even in 10 minutes. Anybody could have walked in.
And I'm the only person I've ever run across in there. Well, Gip Goody from Goody Mob was there. I hung out with him because we did some stuff with him. But I was there one day, and funny enough, we were shooting this video with Redman, and he was like, Fife mentions a Bentley truck, which I didn't even know that was a thing. And he's like, "Come on, Tone, just rent a Bentley truck." And I'm like, "What?" So I'm down at Icon Studios like 2 nights before we're going to do the video. And I'm loading in because I think it was the night we're going to interview Gip. And I see a Bentley truck out there, and I'd never seen one. And so I was like, I went up to Ian. I was like, "Ian, whose Bentley truck is that?" And he's like, "That's Lotto's." And I was like, "I don't know who that is." And he's like, "Look her up." And I was like, "Okay, would she let Redman use her Bentley truck?" And he's like, "I don't think so." And so that's the only Bentley truck I've ever seen. I think it was hers. I didn't see her. I just saw her truck.
Wow.
So
just casually name dropped in Lotto and Redman and Gip.
I don't even know who Lotto is. Like, I still don't. Like, I looked her up, but I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like, I'm old school. I don't know the new stuff.
So let's go to Redman, because we've messaged before, obviously, trying to get line this up. Redman is my spirit animal.
Let me tell you something too. You would love, like, the real Reggie Noble.
Yep.
Is better than Redman.
Yep.
Like, he's just like, the dude is so smart. It's funny because when you see these people, like when you see him on TV, you see Redman, you see whoever, right? And you're kind of look at Redman, you're like, he's charismatic, he's funny, he's, but why is he so successful? And then you meet him and you're like, oh, that's why. Because he really, like, off camera, chill. Like, he's not, with that camera pointed at him, he turns into Redman, right? Yep. But off camera, he's thoughtful, massively intelligent, like next level creative. Like, he calls me up, he says, this guy, he calls me up and he goes, Tone, I got this idea. That's what he says. Yo, Tone, I got this idea. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, did you ever see Naked Gun 2? And I'm like, yeah,
of course he does Naked Gun 2.
Yeah,
of course he does.
Of course I've seen Naked Gun 2. And he goes, you know the scene when Frank is slamming the president's wife's head off the bottom of the table? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I want to do that in a video. And I was like, let's do it. But that's how he is. Like, he'll get these ideas, and it's like, I mean, he's just incredible. Like, every time I work with him, it's, again, you just stand there and you're like, you just take it all in, because he's Redman for a reason, and he's every bit that dope.
Oh my gosh, you're literally living my dream like that.
Yeah, he won't disappoint you. Like, every time Redman comes to town, it's an adventure, and I mean in the best way. Like, there's just always like the best stories, the best. He has like, if you go on his Instagram, and even when they did a show at in New York City at Radio City Music Hall. There was a big hip hop event there like a couple months ago, and everyone was there, all the luminaries, everybody. And there's this famous picture, and it's got everybody in the picture. And Redman's in the picture, and he's got a T-shirt on that says "Don't be unfun," right? And you can go to his social media, and he wears the shirt that says "Don't be unfun."
Yeah.
And that is a joke against me.
Really?
Because yeah, we were scouting locations for the spot, and it was me and Roots, who's Fife's DJ and manager, and Redman. And so the three of us on a chat.
Wait. Roots.
Yeah. Not the Roots, not the
No,
band.
not Nappy Roots, right?
No.
Okay.
This
just
is
making sure.
DJ Ross Root, we call him Roots. He's
Okay.
He's the DJ for Fife, and he's business partner and manager.
Okay.
And
So I had to make sure I didn't miss something in my
But
knowledge.
he knows. He's another one that his tentacles go everywhere. He knows everybody.
Gotcha.
Right. So we're on this thread, and he's like, Tone, we need this outside location. And I'm like, okay. So Roots and I went down to this spot that was really cool. It's this urban development area that they're really like it's just really cool looking.
Okay.
And so I take these pictures, but it was like a Tuesday afternoon and no one's there. Like it's got this these trails and these walkways and all these paths and stuff, and just looks really cool. So I'm taking these pictures, and it was cloudy. And so the pictures are just to show him, like, here's the location, right? So I send them to him, and I'll have to look up his message, but his exact message was, yo, Tone, these look unfun. And and I was like, yeah, it's the middle of the day. I said, we're going to have people there. And Roots jumps in and he goes, yeah, Tone, don't be unfun. Right.
Oh, man.
And then Redman doubles down on it. Like, yeah, stop being unfun. And then Roots sends stock pictures of the other location that we scouted when it was like perfect stock photos, sunny, everyone out. And Redman's like, yeah, Tone, those look fun. Don't be unfun. So then the day of, he flies in from Jersey for the shoot, wearing that T-shirt that says "Don't be unfun." I'm like, this dude. Yeah,
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So we just talked about Redman. Sorry, we have other people jumping in. Dragon, welcome. This is Tony Reames. We just got done talking about Redman. Now I gotta ask, Big Daddy Kane. You said you had stories. Bring them on.
For days.
So, give me the first one that popped in your mind.
Oh my God. So, I've only seen this one other time, and the first time I saw it was when we met Rakim, right? And it's this.
Let me just throw this camera across the room.
Right. It's this thing that happens, and I've only seen it with Rakim, but it happened with Big Daddy Kane. So we're Speech is getting ready to drop this new album, and this is their Arrested Development's last album. And so he's got all these people on it, and he got Big Daddy Kane, he got Moni Love, he got Master Ace. I mean, all Sugar Hill Gang, like a bunch of people. And he's like, hey man, I want you to shoot these videos for it. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was like, I didn't pick. I was like, I'm not gonna, because he had Speech always has an idea. So Speech sends me these 3 songs. The song with Big Daddy Kane, the song with Master Ace, and the song with Moni Love. And I was like, let's do it. So he says, Tony, I need you to reach out to Big Daddy Kane. And I was like, okay. So I reach out to Big Daddy Kane, and he's like, he's in Carolina, and he's just all over the place. And he's like, but I'm in town for this concert, the one I'm talking about this year with Chubb, but it was last year, July 1st or 2nd or whatever.
Gotcha.
And he said, maybe we could shoot the video then. And I was like, cool. And so then we all get on this call, me, Speech, and Big Daddy Kane, right? Nuts, absolutely nuts. And I'm just sitting there like, what?
Right.
And they're going back and forth and they're talking. I don't think they'd ever really spoken before. So it was like really just sort of just talking, right? And Big Daddy Kane says, Speech is like, man, I just want you to know how appreciative I am of you not only being on the song, but willing to do this video. If there's anything I can do, please let me know. And Big Daddy Kane's like, I got an idea. And I'm sitting there like, okay. And he says, when I perform, one of my last songs I'm going to do is the symphony. And what I want to do is after my verse, I want to stop the beat and I want to say, hey, yo, next up on the symphony, Speech, and have Speech come out, as a shock to the crowd, like a guest verse on the symphony, right?
Wow.
And Speech is like, I'm there. And I'm thinking, I got to be there for this, right?
Yeah.
So I said, hey, is there any way I can come film it? And they're like, yeah, of course. So I'm like, I'm there. So no one knows about it. Like, I don't even think he told the promoters or anyone. So anyway, fast forward to the day. And I call my good friend JB, and I was like, JB, hey man, I need a huge favor. And he's like, what's up? I was like, I need you to pick someone up for me at the airport and bring them to the set. And he's like, okay, why me? And I'm like, it's Big Daddy Kane. And that's his favorite rapper of all time.
And you sent him to pick him up. Wow.
Yeah. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And I said, but you got to get him there and you got to get him to the set. And then you got to get him back because he's got to perform that night. There's a very small window. We'll only have him for maybe an hour.
Wow.
And he's like, cool. So we're on. And so what we did is our set time was like noon. And we were supposed to get Big Daddy Kane at like 2, or like 2 to 3 or something. Well, 2 gets there and we're trying to get through to JB. And JB's like, he's not here. I don't know where he is. So there's all of this confusion, right? And and we're all on set. Everyone's there. My buddy Tim flew in and we're losing this window, right? And Speech is like nervous, but he's still kind of like, it'll work out. I just have a good feeling about it. So like 2:45, door opens and in walks Big Daddy Kane. And it was like, for me, I mean, it was like Big Daddy Kane walking in, but it would be like if the Beatles or Jesus or so, you know what I mean? Walking, everyone just
lost
froze.
their minds, yeah.
Speech lost his mind. Like he just froze, like fanned out, like all of us did, like just like, you know. So he comes in and we're just like, oh my God, he's here, right? And we're like, we just forgot that we were there to shoot a music video. And so then we'd already blocked out this whole spot where we were going to have Big Daddy Kane. And I'm like, you know, we can have Big Daddy Kane here. So we all lit for that area. And Speech is beside me. He's like, man, just film it. And I'm like, well, you got to be in it too. And he's like, no, I don't want to be in it. And I'm like, this is your video. Right. You got to be in it with Big Daddy Kane. He's like, you think so? And I'm like, yes. Yeah. So Speech goes in it, and Frida was there, and she's one of the singers and dancers for Arrested Development. And she's like, just like, and we all are just like, oh my God, it's Big Daddy Kane. And I was like, well, you got to get in that video too. And she's like, well, I'm not in the right outfit because we've been shooting multiple things. And I was like, we'll change because we'll wait. And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, just change. You got to be in this, you know? So she changes and she and Speech are in it. And it was just like, literally like Jesus walking in the door when Big Daddy Kane walked in for everybody. Everyone just literally was just beside themselves. Like it truly was like, it's hard to describe it. The same thing happened with Rakim, where it didn't matter who you were. It does not matter who it was. When Big Daddy Kane walks in the room, everybody stops and is like, and that dude is so smooth and so cool. He came up to Tim and he was like, hey, Tim, you got your phone on you? And Tim was like, yeah. And he's like, hey, can you pull up my lyrics for this song? And Tim's like, sure. And he's like, cause I didn't have it with me to listen to it. And so he did one of these with the phone. All right, I'm ready. And sat down and boom. It was like
absolutely
like
pro.
Legendary.
That's cool. So you directed that video. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
If I'm ever down there, my mom lives in Oxford, Alabama. I'm coming.
You're always welcome. Hey, be careful. I'll throw you in a video.
Come on. All right. So now to my favorite thing you've done. Besides every music video you've ever done, apparently. Playtime's over.
Okay.
Run me through that. Just talk about the idea behind it. Like, just encapsulate it for me. Because I'm like, I've been sitting here wanting to ask about it the whole time. But like, obviously you have other really cool, you probably got a million other ones. But let's start with Playtime's over.
That one's really special to me. Mm-hmm. Because, a couple of years ago, I was at a Cinema Challenge film festival thing where they do this thing where you have like 13 days to make a short film and then you get to all screen it, one of those deals.
That's awesome.
And one of my buddies had one there and he's really good. And so I was like, Joe, I want to come see what you got. Cause I knew he did one and he did this thing called Girls Against Humanity. And he had 2 actors.
You know the director of Girls Against Humanity.
Well, this is a short film version of it. I don't know if it's the same one. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my buddy Joe. So
you know everybody. It's crazy.
So the 2 actresses in it, Sydney Weiss and Haley Leary. So I see them both and I'm like, they're phenomenal, right? And I'm like, Joe, you got to introduce me to Haley. Because I don't claim to have like this magic power or anything. Greg really does when it comes to casting. Mm-hmm. But like, I'm pretty good when I spot something where I'm like, oh, they've got something. Mm-hmm. And she has it. 100% she has it. And so he introduced me to her. And we met for coffee or whatever. And we just started talking. And she's like, well, I really want to do something with you. And she had seen El Shavari. And she's like, I really want to do something with your daughter. And I was like, cool.
That's really cool.
So we met for coffee and just kicked around some ideas. And I had a couple ideas. And then she goes, what if it's about a child who takes revenge on her babysitter? And I was like, okay, I'm listening. And then we started building on it. I don't really remember how we came to it, but it's like, what if the little girl recreates scenes from horror movies to scare her babysitter? And so that was the genesis of the idea, right?
That's awesome.
And she's like, well, you got to meet my buddy Todd, who's a writer. And I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. And so we meet Todd, and Todd loves the idea. And so then Todd, I think within like 2 days, wrote the first draft.
Wow. And
it was literally, the way it worked was like, I'm an old school horror guy. So like, I don't know every horror movie, but man, I know the ones I do know, I know. Mm-hmm. And so I would write lists of like, this scene from this movie, this scene from this movie, this scene from this movie, you know? And so I would just keep sending him these lists, and he was able to take all those and create this story. And we shot, the only thing that I added or changed was, I'm trying to think what it was. Yeah, I don't think there was anything. There was one beat I changed, but I don't think it was important to the composition of all the different horror movies. So anyway, so we got together and we filmed that, and we filmed it 3 days. It took 3 days to film it, but it was over like 9 months, because we just do it on a Saturday, then 6 months later on a Saturday. And by the end of it, my daughter had grown like a foot. So we were having to like cheat things. So if you watch it and pay attention, there's different, like there's parts where I'm having her like down here, but it's like,
yeah, that makes sense. I was sitting there going, that makes
sense. She grew quite a bit.
Yeah.
But so we did that, and that was sort of the one that took us all from like here, like up a notch. Mm-hmm. And what really did it was we premiered it at Fright Fest in Scotland. And my mom and I went over there. And so, and Fright Fest is like the biggest genre festival in the world. Yeah. And so I was lucky enough to hang out with Paul and Alan and these guys. And Paul pulled me aside and he was like, I love Playtime's Over. He said, I'm gonna warn you though. There's only two things that happen when we screen films. The crowd either loves it or they hate it. And he said, because he said he just came out from a screening and they're like, how'd it go? And he's like, ugh, bombed, like booing, throwing stuff at the screen, right?
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And my mom's there, but she didn't hear that, right? So he's like, and this is like 10 minutes before our screen. And so he's like, all right, you ready? And I was like, oh boy. So he takes us into this theater in Scotland and it's massive. It's like something in a movie. I think it holds like 600 people and it was standing room only. Like you couldn't even get down the aisles. There were so many people in this screening, right? And so we get down there and Paul has me up front just to sort of introduce it, right? And I'm like,
don't throw something at me.
So I sit down and the lights go down. And my mom goes, this is exciting. And keep in mind, we really hadn't screened this for anyone yet. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, oh my God, my mom's here and this is going to be a disaster. And when Haley answers the door and she's got her Shop Smart tag on from Army of Darkness, I heard a couple people like, yes, right? And then each step of the way, the cheering would get louder and louder until the Texas Chainsaw ending with Evan with the sprinklers. It was like a standing ovation, right?
It's epic.
And like, my mom is like, and it's the first time she's ever really seen what I do, right? Yeah. I mean, she doesn't really see the stuff I do other than like this, or when I send her clips of the kids. Mm-hmm. And she was like, this is amazing, thinking this is how it always is. And Paul was like, I told you it was good. I told you. And they were even kind of surprised, like, wow, it got such a great response,
I'm not shocked.
And then I was getting all night, I'm getting like tweeted at and, mentions and all these things. And I was just like, my mom's like, this is really great. And I'm like, I didn't have the heart to tell her, like, Mom, it could have gone either way,
Just gripping the seat, right?
Yeah. So that's where that one, like, and that's been to date, that's been the one screening where like is just surreal to me, not only because of the reaction, but because it was me and my mom, and it's kind of like because all these, she'll deny it. But when I was younger, she was the one that was kind of like, you can't go into film school because it doesn't pay, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Do a real job, but seeing that kind of reaction to something that we all did, was just, there's just something really like, I don't know, it's like an adrenaline shot to the heart. Like it just felt like, wow, we really, and it really did resonate. It played all over the world. We played in South America. We did these 3 big festivals in South America.
Wow.
And I still, it's funny because I'll get all these like Portuguese reviews of it and I have to translate it, you
That's
know.
awesome.
It's just, man, it's just surreal. And I can't take much of the credit. It was a team effort. I mean, it was like Haley coming up with the idea, Todd writing it. And we had Amber, who's our makeup person. She's just, and she's now next level.
Yeah.
She does like Guardians of the Galaxy, Stranger Things. And then Kristen, our wardrober, she created all that wardrobe, like all of that she sewed together. Wow. So like the Suspiria thing is like exactly like the dress from Suspiria. Like everything in that is like the Psycho dress that the Norman Bates mom thing that Evan wears, that's all handmade. It's all like, she found the right fabric. And we even did the things like the Psycho scene. Mm-hmm. I printed out every frame, every shot from the Psycho shower scene, printed out every single one. Wow. And Nick and I studied every single one. And then I went back and I watched the documentary on it. And then I took it to Amber, and Amber, the blood in it is made of the same chocolate syrup mixture that they use the blood in Psycho. Wow. And even this is something that's really cool, that this was totally Amber's idea, was, and I think they did this in Psycho, was to heighten the black and white. Haley in that shower scene is actually body painted white, and her fingernails are black, and they put her eyebrows are black. And so it's like, it really heightens the black and white. So if you go back and watch it and be like, man, that really is like a crazy looking black and white, because she's black and white. We shot it in color, but everything then, you know, when you do it in black and white, it all becomes like this surreal looking black and white. So what I'm saying is everyone put in their effort and everyone brought their A game. And it was just like, I don't know. It was just one of those few moments in life where it's like, I think we might've did something right, you know, because a lot of it is not. A lot of it is the other side of that.
A lot of it's trial and error, getting the shot, hoping it worked out, going back and doing it again. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's life. That's the funny part. That like film.
Yeah, it's not all ups, man. It's a lot of downs.
Absolutely. Tony, this has been an absolute treat. Absolute treat.
Same.
We're at an hour.
So, it was like 5 minutes, probably because I just can't stop talking. No, probably.
That is the absolute best part of interviewing. So what I've noticed, a lot of people have a lot to say about stuff. I am merely the vessel. You're filling it up. So
thank you so much, man. I mean, what an honor.
No,
great to be here.
Are you kidding? Like,
oh, stop.
Absolutely. So Tony, where can we find you? What social media are you on? You said something about a website as well.
My Instagram is Tony Reames, all one word. You can find me there. There's two Tony Reames. All right. So there is, I think he's Dr. Tony Reames, and I think he's out your way. Really? He's very good looking and he's very smart. I'm the other one. So, but look him up too, because he's doing some really great work. Like, unrelated to film, that dude is like next level and doing some big things. So shout out to the other Tony Reames. But, and then on our website is memorywedge.com, where you can check out El Shaveri. That's on there, I think. The Closet's on there too, I think.
I think I got to see The Closet. I didn't catch the El Shaveri. That one. I need to catch that one for sure. Please
let me know what you think about that one. That's all three of my kids. So that's all three of them.
Awesome. I will definitely get into that. Again, Tony, absolute pleasure. Maybe down the road, if you do something else, we'll get you back on.
Would love to. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.